Well, we're at it finally. Somewhat of a game week routine. Little heavier practices over the next 2 or 3 days, but for the most part, we're in that at Fold at this time, and we're doing good. I don't have a lot of updates for you other than what I had a few days ago. We'll know a lot more about our football team in a month. But I'm excited about where we're at. I'm excited where the team is from a competitive standpoint. We have a few young players that'll get a chance to get out and compete some based on where we're at in the depth chart. And we're just pushing forward. So glad we got a little bit of heat here the last few days to practice and open them up a little bit from a cardio standpoint. Try to get us ready for what I'm guessing is going to be hot the first few games. So guys are in good shape and moving forward.
Coach Gundy, you mentioned young players getting a chance to play. I know Blaine Green is someone who's listed as a starter on the depth chart. What was it about him that really helped him secure that role?
Well, he's very physical. He's 215 pounds and picked the system up early and stayed healthy, and that allows him to get a chance. Sometimes we have young players that may pick the system up and then athletically put themselves in a position to compete, but if they get dinged up or get a little soft tissue injury and they're out for 3 or 4 days, it sets them back considerably because of their youth. So far, he's stayed away from all those situations.
What do you think you're going to end up doing at left tackle?
Well, we're working both guys. We feel good about them. At some point, somebody will take that role. In the first game, I would guess they're both going to play. And then we see how they play. We all know that some young men play differently in games than others. So I think both of them deserve a chance to get out there and compete.
Brennan Presley starting at receiver and then both kickoff return and punt return. For a guy with that little experience and then also that small, what allows him to be able to handle all the time?
It's interesting. That's what he did in high school. When I first recognized him at a summer 7-on-7, I was watching one of my kids play, and he was playing wide out and defensive back for Bixby, and they'd play 8 or 10 games a day, and he never came off the field then. And he gets here and he does the same thing in practice. He never comes off the field. So is it a little bit of a concern? Sure. He's kind of like a little rubber ball. Those balls that we had you're too young, but when I was a kid, he just kind of bounces off things. And I'm glad he's on our football team, but he loves to play. He likes to compete. He wants to be on the field. In fact, when we're working special teams returns, we don't hit our returners. So he wants, he asks, can he put flags on to see if they actually get him down or he makes a miss. He doesn't like that they can just tag off on him. So I think he'll be fine.
You got several oars at the running back position. What does that say about what you have at that position?
We're very fortunate. We've got a number of guys that we trust can carry the ball and be effective for us at the running back spot. I've never had the luxury of having this many backs. So, if we have 40 rushes a game, perfect scenario would be 10s across the board. Will it happen that way? I doubt it. If somebody gets hot, they'll stay. But we do have the luxury of not letting one player get completely fatigued and or getting beat up throughout the season.
Back to Brennan for a second. You mentioned the flags. Is that common for a player to ask to wear flags when they're returning?
Mm-hmm. Brennan, he has a different train of thought at times. But the first time I'd been asked that.
Mike, have you crossed paths in a game situation with Trino anytime? And whether you have or not, what do you see as sort of his mark as a coach for a long time?
I have a lot of respect for him with what he's done. I think there's certain guys across the country over an extended period of time have proved that they can win and have success. Now his is a little different in the different places he's been, but for the most part, everywhere he's stopped, he's been successful on offense. His quarterbacks have played well, and he's won games. and he's done it over an extended period of time. I don't even know how long he's done it. Y'all know before me. I just know that he's been coaching. He's been a head coach a long time. In fact, and anybody know how long he's been a head coach? Long time. And so he's obviously doing the right things because he's continued to be a head coach. That's really what I think of when I hear his name.
Mike, next Saturday will be Spencer's 21st start under center for you guys, and I mean he's got a year ahead of him, and maybe another after that. But where does that put him already in terms of the handful of guys we've got to that point with you?
I mean, his durability, even though he's had an injury or two here and there and missed a few, he's come back. But guys that play, 20, 30 games in a college career is pretty good from a standpoint that you don't see a lot of young men that can stay healthy enough and put themselves in a position to do that. He could go on to, at some point he could play over 40 games. So he seems to be improving each year, seems to be improving each day. The supporting cast around him needs to do their part, because we all know that he and I are going to get too much credit and people are going to be too critical of us. So he understands that, and the team and the supporting cast around him need to play really well and put him in a position to have success.
What about Spencer as a locker room leader? How has he developed maybe in off the field?
He does a really good job in his own way. We all have our own personality. I see him at practice. I don't see him in the locker room. And he has a good relationship with the players, and he brings them together, and they goof around, even him and the defensive guys. So I would say that his ability to bring the team together is pretty good at this time.
Would you say there's anything that maybe defines him or sets him apart in that way from any other quarterbacks that you've had in?
Not really. I don't see him outside of football. You would have to ask him, but outside of football, he's to himself a lot. He likes to fish and hunt, and he's not in large gatherings that you would maybe think other college players would be in. But in his team setting, he's a good leader and brings the team together.
We expect Mike, the offense, to score like it's more accustomed to scoring. What's the basis for that? What's the biggest reason for your anticipation of the offense returning?
For offense to score? Well, I think we have some experienced players. I think that the quarterback's improved. We were in a very difficult situation in the offensive line last year. We're more improved in that area just by depth. We still have young players that are in those spots, but just overall, I think that we have a group that should play better based on the situation we were in last year.
Do you feel better knowing what you have in terms of progress at quarterback or progress on the offensive line? Is there something that takes precedence?
I feel good about both. I don't think there's would be a big difference in either. I think that, as I've said multiple times, I feel comfortable with where Spencer's at. Tim Rattay has helped him tremendously, having the same guy for a couple years. I think Tim's an excellent coach. I think he has a good relationship with all the quarterbacks, which is important in my opinion. And then from an offensive line standpoint, we're just healthier than we have been. And that's a big part of being able to practice full speed and give ourselves the best chance.
Look at Missouri State's quarterback, Jayden Johnson. What stands out to you about him?
Well, he's active. He can move around. Again, Coach Petrino's had success with that style of player in the past, a guy that can run the ball some, can sling it down the field, make plays. And I would say that we would have to lean toward him being an experienced quarterback. He's been around, so that's kind of the way I see it.
Mike, a few weeks back, you talked about Tay Martin, and he talked about having some meetings with you that he initiated. Can you kind of talk about those meetings and how beneficial those have been for both of you guys as people? Because it's not just football related.
With Tay, when he came here, this was a whole new world for him. The structure, the discipline, the accountability, and it took him a period of time to adjust. And essentially, he's a self-made guy. He has a daughter back home, So we had a lot of talks about the importance of things in life beyond football and responsibilities beyond football. That was one of them. And that, in my opinion, he needed to work on life skills as well as football to improve in areas that would, at some point, if his daughter ever says, hey, why did this happen? He can give her an answer that he would be proud of. And sometimes when we're young, we don't think that way. And so Tay and I spent a lot of time together. I don't pretend to be a counselor, but I learned a lot about him, and hopefully I was able to help him with some things outside of football. The football side of him is going to be just fine. He's got a gift. But the distractions and things that were tugging on him didn't allow him to perform at a level that he needed to perform at. And part of it's maturity. But he's got a great heart. He's a good person, and he wants to do the right things for all the right reasons, so that gives him a chance. Then he just listened, and I wasn't the only one. There's been multiple people that have helped with his development. But in my opinion, he's in a really good spot right now. Not to say that he's still not a kid, but he's in a good spot right now, and that's why he's been performing so well in practice.
Mike, what did you like when you were looking at bringing in Jalen Warren, and what have you seen from him that you like about his addition to the team?
A lot of experience, success at a high level, very physical, a great young man, unselfish, willing to work hard, and is going to play well.
When it is determined, do you kind of see the loser of that left tackle battle maybe being the sixth man to slot in if more injury issues crop up in that position group? How comfortable would you feel with that?
Yeah, at some point, whoever finishes second in that battle will be that swing tackle, because we need to try to have two centers and a possible third if there's an emergency, because it's hard to run a play if we can't get a snap, which you know. We had the swing tackle and a swing guard, and that's where that position would play.
Speaking of having two centers, talk about having Danny coming in from the MAC, and then Preston, who got some experience last year, albeit at guard, how that can translate for him if called upon at center.
Tyrese, or who are you talking about?
Danny and Preston.
Okay, so fortunately we've got 3.5 guys now that are practicing for us that can snap if we had to, which is good news. Hopefully we don't have to use all those guys, but that's good news. Danny gives us a lot of the same that Jalen did. Is he came in, he's played at a high level for a long period of time, he's been successful, he came in unselfish, he came in and said, I have to prove myself, both young men did. Not, we're going to give you something, you're not entitled to anything. They said, I'm going to have to prove myself. Great young man, great work habits, competes, and tough. He's going to play good. Those things are going to allow him to play good.
You talked about Tay Martin and Jalen and Danny. Is it harder to teach culture to transfers who've already experienced different levels of college football? Is that harder?
In our case, we've been lucky. Obviously, I've been here 100 years, and most of our staff has been with me a long time. I distribute that throughout the group. I let each guy, each coach, each Rob Glass and Rashedi Jones and Coach Knowles and Coach Dunn and Rattay, and each guy controls their area. So it's their responsibility to instill our culture. And then I just watch the thing grow, and if I think there's an issue, then I'll get involved. Otherwise, it pretty much runs itself now. So when we get a young man in like Tay or Danny or let's think of a younger guy that came in, like Austin Gerard, even Jalen, but Austin Gerard's got X number of years. So Coach McIndoe's responsible for instilling our culture in Austin, not me. I don't spend as much time with him. He spends pretty much every day with Rob Glass or his position coach. And then I see them all at times, but for me to be able to parent them and instill that in them would be difficult because there's 135 of them. So to answer your question, it just depends on the young man and when he's come in here. Now, in the instance that he asked about Tay, he had essentially 1 year left, and then COVID allowed him to have another year. So sometimes it's a little more difficult because they've had 3 or 4 years of something, and then not that that something might not be good, it's just not the way we operate. So sometimes it's a little more difficult to train those guys than it is maybe Austin Gerard, who's really only been out a year or so.
Jayden Jernigan, he's had an interesting career path at this point, playing his freshman year, sitting out last year. What do you like about him, and kind of how has he reacclimated to things?
I didn't hear who said.
Jayden Jernigan.
Oh, he's practiced well. He's down. He's about 280 now. He was in the 290-ish earlier when he was playing, and then he was out. He had a couple things with the virus, and it took a long time to get it cleared, and then he had another little injury. But he's had a really good camp, and he'll be in a rotation, and I'm excited about watching him. It does a guy good to see a young man that was out basically a year and then able to fight his way back and get out there and compete.
Coach Devin Harper, he's played a whole bunch of games for you guys. Been here this is his 6th season, but he hasn't really started much. He's listed as number 1 on the depth chart. What are you seeing Devin, and what does he bring to the table, and how beneficial is it that you have a guy who's had all this experience and you just put him right back in?
Well, we've mentioned this throughout the camp. The super seniors at whatever school it may be is a huge advantage. So I'll give you an example. We have 6 guys like him, and I'm just going to throw 4 names out of guys that maybe at one point thought about coming back and being a super senior. Amon, Cam Murray, Stoner, and Bundage. How about that? So if you took those 4 guys and put them on our team right now, how much better would we be with experience and depth? That's what super seniors do for you. So that's what, my math's not great, that's 20-something% or maybe close to 30% if you have 22 starters and put 4 or 5 guys out there. So that's what those guys can do. And Devin has that experience, and he's fast, and he likes to play football. So he's another player I'm excited about watching, and I'm glad he stayed in our program, and I'm glad he's on our team.
Mike, you're going to be able to fill this place and have a game day this year like you couldn't have last year. What do you anticipate next Saturday looking like, and what does that really do for you guys?
We're all trying to get back to normal. We know that, but I think we all are aware that the virus is still an issue. I don't pretend to be a scientist, but maybe more contagious now than ever. I would hope that the majority of them that would come here would be vaccinated to protect themselves. That's their choice. And obviously, they have an opinion. And for the pageantry of college football to get back to normal is a big deal for everybody in the country. Like, I know you guys probably watched some of the games I did, the sports, College World Series, Girls College World Series, Omaha. I watched them, and it's packed. Made me feel good to see that. That's college athletics. So I'm excited about that, and we want everybody to have the freedom to come and go, and we want to try to get back to normal life as much as possible. We just need to be as careful as possible.
How much does that game day atmosphere affect, I guess, recruiting, being able to have guys here for game day visits, since that's sort of the one aspect that you can't really show them over, virtual type stuff like that.
Right. It's big for everybody, not just Oklahoma State. You want to bring players in. You want them to be able to see your tailgate. That's a big part of us here. We have 35,000 people tailgating pre-virus. Now we should have, I don't know what it'll be, but it'll be more than last year. And then eventually, hopefully, it'll get back to where it was. And then you allow a young man that's a prospective student athlete to look and see kind of what it's like. Most of the players that visit during that time of year are wanting to get a feel for what it's like on your campus on a game day.
Is there an update on the vaccination rate for the team? Is it higher?
We're right around 80. We might be at 84, maybe something like that. We can get to 89 if we were to maximize vaccinations without pre-existing conditions. We do have some that are not recommended getting it, so we could still get another 8 or 10. I say that, maybe 6 or 8, and hopefully at some point maybe they'll want to do that to keep themselves from, catching it and being out for quite a while.
How's your confidence, Mike, going into a season opener with this team great with the last 15?
Well, I like our team. I like we have players on. I've talked on both sides of the ball. I mean, I like where we're at. I like their effort. I think we're a good team as it relates to special teams. So I like our team. We'll see. I mean, it's just really hard to predict until you've been in it a month and we kind of know where we're at. And hopefully, once we've been in it a month, we're healthy. We don't have a crisis at any particular position. But I like where we're at.
Have your captains been named yet?
What's that?
Have you named your captains yet?
We have not done that. So that'll be next week. And our captains are picked each week by each side of the ball, all 3 phases. And they're the captains during the week. And then at the end of the year, those captains that have been picked during the week by the coaches based on their work ethic, their leadership, and the prior's game productive. Then at the end of the year, the players vote on their own captains for the season captains that go on the picture on the wall.
Do that to build leadership in places that,
Say, the mask is killing me.
sorry. Do you do that to try and build leadership in places where, maybe you wouldn't have it as much? 'Cause a lot
With
of
the
people-
coaches?
Well, week to week, because so many other teams
right.
do.
So what we do is, this started years ago because we might pick captains right now, and then 2 of those 5 might get injured, not be with the team the rest of the year. So when you travel or you go to a game, you could be down to 3 captains instead of 5. So that's why we adjusted and we don't do that anymore. Now, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm not saying it's fair. I'm just saying that I wasn't comfortable with that. Had happened to us before where you had a guy or 2 that couldn't be there. So we're relying on those guys that we choose as captains to lead our team that week. And that's why we do it that way.
You'd mentioned at the start of fall camp you were going to kind of let Alex Hale take his own pace to get back and whatnot. How you feeling heading into week 1? How he's health-wise coming off of that injury?
His workload has been what it would have been on a normal year at this point. As I mentioned, those guys all have their own workloads, their own plans. Essentially, they get themselves ready, and he's been involved in everything that I've seen him involved in prior years. So I would say he's doing good.
Mike, you won the Big 12 and 11, and you should have won it in 13. You had the best team, I think. Since then, you've had really good teams, but you hadn't got back to that level. What's missing, or do you have, you think, the components that you need to get back to that level?
Well, you have to put yourself in a position athletically to get there. I mean, we all know that in order to win at a high level, you have to be good athletically to give yourself a chance. Got to get a few breaks. Got to stay healthy. A couple games, you got to get turnover here and there to win. Got to win 1 or 2 on the road that maybe people think that are a toss-up or that you can't win. And then your team's got to be unselfish. So we've been in position quite a few years, really. When you look, I don't know. One time I tried to figure it up in my brain that when I started coaching in the Big 12, if we would have had a championship game, somebody in here might know, but I think we'd have been in it about 6 times. So we've been close, maybe even more than that, and we just have to continue to push. Guys got to stay together. Got to be competitive. Got to get a few breaks. Got to do a good job of coaching them, putting them in a position.
Hey Coach, to kind of get perspective, for a QB who's playing behind a struggling O-line, how does that kind of affect their mentality, their decision making, all those aspects?
What's part now?
Like if a QB is playing behind a struggling O-line, how does that kind of affect their decision making, how they go about their game?
Are you saying a struggling offensive line? Okay, so I'm not understanding what you're asking me.
Like when Spencer's playing behind offensive line and struggle.
Oh, like last year? So anybody really that plays behind a young offensive line or an offensive line that's not ready to play, like our guys weren't last year, they have a biological clock in their brain, and it goes off quicker because of just feeling people around them. So there's a big effect in the situation we were in last year. We were in that, I don't know, about 5 years before that, we had a really difficult time with the offensive line, and it was hard on our quarterback. So that's why I'm excited about Spencer, in my opinion, playing better this year. I think he'll be more comfortable, and he won't feel that his biological clock won't be ticking so fast.
Are you going to be able to sneak down to Edmond to see Gage in his first
Hope
varsity
so.
start?
Yeah, I hope so. Get to go down there. They got a tough schedule. They might have a tough schedule in the state. So it'll be good to go watch them. Yep.
You have Brandon Whedon on the TV call. What kind of TV guy you think Brandon will be?
Who's he doing that for?
He's doing your game for ESPN.
He ought to be good. Knows the game, right? Quarterback. Should have a little Tony Romo in him. Should be able to call things before it happens. You start calling plays out before it happens, all of a sudden you get a $6 million contract. And he ought to be a guy that can do some of that. Plus, he has a great personality. People like him, comes across good. So I would guess that he would do really well.
Seems like you have a bigger NFL class of guys than normal this year. Do you get a sense of how many of those guys are going to stick, and have you been watching them this preseason?
I have, and I mean, I think Amendola's a starter, right? Somebody said the other day, that's awesome for him. I mean, how about that? Walk on, come from Philadelphia. You walk on here, unselfish, tireless worker, wasn't entitled, never said a word, did his job. He was a good kicker, but, I don't know that when he was here, everybody said, hey, that guy's, the next Dan Bailey. But worked his tail off, did everything we asked him. We were just talking about him the other day. I was just talking to Danielle about him. When we did bowl flights and stuff, he had to go all the way to Philadelphia and come back. So, probably not the greatest flights. Never complained. And then now I turned the TV on the other day. I just happened to be there, and he kicks a 54-yarder. He sneaks a 46-yarder in. He was living right. Credit card, snuck it in, and then he kicks a 30-yarder. So I said, okay, I'm just going to check him out. So I pull out my phone because they keep me abreast of him, but I can't keep up with all of them. So I pull up the Jets, and I'm trying to find his, the roster, and I'm going to push his name. And his name comes up, but he doesn't have a picture. It's got like the Jet logo. Usually not a good sign. And Dola's a good-looking kid, So anyway, I said, okay, I'm going to check the depth chart. So I go to depth chart, and I scroll down to special teams, and they had like 1, 2, 3, and it was 1, and it was Matt Amendola, and I was like, dang, that's awesome. So I flipped to see who he was competing against. There wasn't anybody else on there. So I thought, looks like to me he's the guy. So I'm really excited about those guys. I hear Tylen's doing good. I hear Stoner's doing good. Somebody said Chuba was doing good, had a run or long run the other day and had 2 catches for 30 yards. Cam Smith, I don't know where everybody's at. I know, isn't the big cut coming up like Monday or something? So we'll know a lot more then. But we do have a number of guys that are out there, so it's pretty cool.
Apparently the Raiders are utilizing Marcel Aitman almost more of as a tight end. Did you ever think about using him like that here?
Not big enough really for that for us. Now, is he still on the roster? I think he got cut.
Okay.
Yeah, he got cut. I hated that. But now he went through that last year and then got back in and hung around and ended up competing. So he's not quite big enough for us for that.
Who's going to kick off for you?
What's that?
Who's going to handle kickoffs for you?
Kickoffs? He's been working both guys, and I'm going to guess it's going to depend on how Alex feels with his in his recovery. But both guys have been working that, and we have. I'll know today because we're doing full speed kickoff today. So if you want to text Sean later today, I'll know. I just whoever he puts out there today is going to be the guy. Because I told him I wanted the ones out there, every position, I want to know who's out there. So that'll be whoever it is today.
Mike, do you get more questions from people outside the building about the season or conference realignment right now?
Well, just so you know, I go directly to my car, and I go directly to my kid's practice if he's practicing, or I go directly home. So I don't get very many questions. But it's a variety of both. There's a lot of interest in conference realignment, and I have had really good discussions with Dr. Schrum, and she assured me that if there was anything that came out concrete worth talking about, that she would let me know. So I haven't paid much attention to it because she and I have a really good relationship. How about this? So last Sunday we had a scrimmage, and it was a night scrimmage. So I'm sitting up here in the orange chairs, taking notes and, acting like I'm doing my job, all that stuff. They're down there scrimmaging, and I kind of like, how you're sitting somewhere and you feel people around you? And I kind of look up, and then I noticed it's Darren and Dr. Schrum. That's pretty cool. So they're kind of sitting there watching the scrimmage, and it's late. 7, 8 o'clock, whatever, on a Sunday night. And I'm taking my notes, watching and talking on the walkie-talkie, job justification, all that junk. And so then we stopped to get the next series done, and I kind of look over. We got the president of the university wearing a hat, T-shirt, running shorts, and tennis shoes. And then she kind of comes over and sets a chair away from me for the next hour and a half, watch the scrimmage and talk football, talk conference realignment and whatever. Pretty cool, huh? That's pretty awesome. So we've had enough discussions that I feel like if there's anything concrete, she'll let me know. And if there's something that we actually need to make decisions on. But I'm getting a lot of both of those at that time, so.